Welcome to A Year of War and Peace. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. A Year of War and Peace is a daily, year-long, chapter-by-chapter reading of and meditation on Leo Tolstoy's epic novel, War and Peace. In these videos and podcasts, you'll be treated to a free reading of one chapter per day of the novel, plus a reflective essay I've written individually tailored to that day's chapter. These readings are offered for free, though if you'd like to support me, you can do so in one of three ways. First, you could purchase my ebook, A Year of War and Peace. It features the entire novel, plus all of my reflective essays, and it's only $2.99 on Amazon.com. You could also become a patron at patreon.com/BrianEDenton. If you sign up there, you'll receive a sonnet once a month, plus a link to an ebook of my collected sonnets. Finally, if you like, you can make a one-time donation to my PayPal account. The email there is brianedenton@gmail.com. You can also use that email to contact me. I'd be happy to hear from you. Your support is greatly appreciated. Today's reading and reflection is on Chapter 157. Chapter 157. Anatoly had lately moved to Dólokhov's. The plan for Natalie Rostova's abduction had been arranged and the preparations made by Dólokhov a few days before. And on the day that Sonia, after listening at Natasha's door, resolved to safeguard her, it was to have been put into execution. Natasha had promised to come out to Kuragin at the back porch at 10 that evening. Kuragin was to put her into a troika he would have ready and to drive her 40 miles to the village of Kaminka, where an unfrocked priest was in readiness to perform a marriage ceremony over them. At Kaminka, a relay of horses was to wait, which would take them to the Warsaw highroad, and from there they would hasten abroad with post horses. Anatoly had a passport, an order for post horses, 10,000 rubles he had taken from his sister, and another 10,000 borrowed with Dólokhov's help. 2 witnesses for the mock marriage, Kvastikov, a retired petty official whom Dólokhov made use of in his gambling transactions, and Makarin, a retired hussar, a kindly, weak fellow who had an unbounded affection for Kuragin, were sitting at tea in Dólokhov's front room. In his large study, the walls of which were hung to the ceiling with Persian rugs, bearskins, and weapons, sat Dólokhov in a traveling cloak and high boots, at an open desk on which lay an abacus and some bundles of paper money. Anatoly, with uniform unbuttoned, walked to and fro from the room where the witnesses were sitting, through the study to the room behind, where his French valet and others were packing the last of his things. Dólokhov was counting the money and noting something down. "Well," he said, "Kvastikov has 2,000. "Give it to him, then," said Anatoly. "Makra," this was their name for Makarin, "will go through fire and water for you for nothing. So here are all accounts. They're all settled," said Dólokhov, showing him the memorandum. "Is that right?" "Yes, of course," returned Anatoly, evidently not listening to Dólokhov, and looking straight before him, with a smile that did not leave his face. Dólokhov banged down on the lid of his desk and turned to Anatoly with an ironic smile. "Do you know? You had better really drop it all. There's still time." "Fool," retorted Anatoly. "Don't talk nonsense. If you only knew, it's the devil knows what." "No, really, give it up," said Dólokhov. "I'm speaking seriously. It's no joke, this plot you've hatched." "What? Are you teasing again? Go to the devil, eh?" said Anatoly, making a grimace. "Really, it's no time for your stupid jokes." And he left the room. Dólokhov smiled contemptuously and condescendingly when Anatoly had gone out. "You wait a bit," he called after him. "I'm not joking. I'm talking sense. Come here, come here." Anatoly returned and looked at Dólokhov, trying to give him his attention and evidently submitting to him involuntarily. "Now listen to me. I'm telling you this for the last time. Why would I joke about it? Do I hinder you? Who arranged everything for you? Who found the priest and got the passport? Who raised the money? I did it all." "Well, thank you for it. Do you think I'm not grateful?" And Anatoly sighed and embraced Dólokhov. "I helped you. But all the same, I must tell you the truth. It is a dangerous business. And if you think about it, a stupid business. Well, you'll carry her off. All right. Will they let it stop at that? It will come out that you're already married. Why, they'll have you in the criminal court." "Oh, nonsense, nonsense," Anatoly ejaculated, and again he made a grimace. Didn't I explain to you? What? And Anatoly, with the partiality dull-witted people have for any conclusion they have reached by their own reasoning, repeated the argument he had already put to Dólokhov 100 times. Didn't I explain it to you that I have come to this conclusion? If this marriage is invalid, he went on, crooking one finger, then I have nothing to answer for. But if it is valid, no matter. Abroad no one will know anything about it. Isn't that so? And don't talk to me. Don't. Seriously, you had better stop it. You're only getting yourself into a mess. Go to the devil, cried Anatoly, and clutching his hair left the room, but returned at once and dropped into an armchair in front of Dólokhov with his feet turned under him. It's the very devil, what? Feel how it beats. He took Dólokhov's hand and put it on his heart. What a foot, my dear fellow. What a glance. A goddess, he added in French. What? Dólokhov, with a cold smile and a gleam in his handsome, insolent eyes, looked at him, evidently wishing to get more amusement out of him. Well, and when the money's gone, what then? What then, huh? Repeated Anatoly, sincerely perplexed by a thought of the future. What then? Then I don't know, but why talk nonsense? He glanced at his watch. It's time. Anatoly went back into the room. Now then, nearly ready? You're dawdling, he shouted to the servants. Dólokhov put away the money, called a footman whom he ordered to bring something for them to eat and drink before the journey, and went into the room where Kosnikov and Makarin were sitting. Anatoly lay on the sofa in the study, leaning on his elbow and smiling pensively, while his handsome lips muttered tenderly to himself. Come and eat something, have a drink, Dólokhov shouted to him from the other room. I don't want to, answered Anatoly, continuing to smile. Come, Balaga is here. Anatoly rose and went into the dining room. Balaga was a famous troika driver who had known Dólokhov and Anatoly some 6 years and had given them good service with his troikas. More than once, when Anatoly's regiment was stationed at Tver, he had taken him from Tver in the evening, brought him to Moscow by daybreak, and driven him back again the next night. More than once he had enabled Dólokhov to escape when pursued. More than once he had driven them through the town with gypsies and ladykins, as he called the prostitutes. More than once in their service he had run over pedestrians and upset vehicles in the streets of Moscow, and had always been protected from the consequences by my gentlemen, as he called them. He had ruined more than one horse in their service. More than once they had beaten him, and more than once they had made him drunk on champagne and Madeira, which he loved. And he knew more than one thing about each of them which would long ago have sent an ordinary man to Siberia. They often called Balaga into their orgies and made him drink and dance at the gypsies, and more than 1,000 rubles of their money had passed through his hands. In their service he risked his skin and his life 20 times a year, and in their service he had lost more horses than the money he had gotten from them. But he liked them, liked that mad driving at 12 miles an hour, liked upsetting a driver or running down a pedestrian, and flying at full gallop through the Moscow streets. He liked to hear those wild, tipsy shouts behind him, get on, when it was impossible to go any faster. He liked giving a painful lash on the neck to some peasant who, more dead than alive, was already hurrying out of his way. Real gentlemen, he considered them. Anatoly and Dólokhov liked Balaga too, for his masterly driving, and because he liked the things they liked. With others, Balaga bargained, charging 25 rubles for a 2 hours' drive, and rarely drove himself, generally letting his young men do so. But with his gentlemen, he always drove himself, and never demanded anything for his work. Only a couple of times a year, when he knew from their valets that they had money in hand, he would turn up of a morning quite sober, and with a deep bow would ask them to help him. The gentleman always made him sit down. Do help me, Theodore Ivanitch, sir, or your excellency, he would say. I'm quite out of horses. Let me have what you can to go to the fair. And Anatoly and Dólokhov, when they had money, would give him 1,000 or a couple thousand of rubles. Balaga was a fair-haired, short and snub-nosed peasant of about 27, red-faced, with a particularly red, thick neck, glittering little eyes, and a small beard. He wore a fine, dark blue, silk-lined cloth overcoat over a sheepskin. On entering the room now, he crossed himself, turning toward the front corner of the room, and went up to Dólokhov, holding out a small, black hand. Fyodor Ivanitch, he said, bowing. How do you do, friend? Well, here he is. Good day, Your Excellency, he said, again holding out his hand to Anatoly, who had just come in. I say, Balaga, said Anatoly, putting his hands on the man's shoulders. Do you care for me or not, huh? Now do me a service. What horses have you come with, huh? As your messenger ordered, your special beasts, replied Balaga. Well, listen, Balaga. Drive all 3 to death, but get me there in 3 hours, huh? When they are dead, what shall I drive? Said Balaga, with a wink. Mind, I'll smash your face in. Don't make jokes, cried Anatoly, suddenly rolling his eyes. Why joke? Said the driver, laughing. As if I'd grudge my gentleman anything. As fast as ever the horses can gallop, so fast we'll go. Ah, said Anatoly. Well, sit down. Yes, sit down, said Dólokhov. I'll stand, Fyodor Ivanitch. Sit down, nonsense, have a drink, said Anatoly, and filled a large glass of wine for him. The driver's eyes sparkled at the sight of the wine. After refusing it for manner's sake, he drank it and wiped his mouth with the red silk handkerchief he took out of his cap. And when are we to start, Your Excellency? Well, Anatoly looked at his watch. We'll start at once. Mind, Balaga, you'll get me there in time, huh? That depends on your luck in starting. Else, why shouldn't we be there in time? Replied Balaga. Didn't we get you to Tver in 7 hours? I thought you remember that, Your Excellency. Do you know, one Christmas I drove from Tver, said Anatoly, smiling at the recollection and turning to Makrim, who gazed rapturously at him with wide-open eyes. Will you believe it, Makrim? It took one's breath away the rate we flew. We came across a train of loaded sleighs and drove right over 2 of them, huh? Those were horses, Balaga continued the tale. That time I'd harnessed 2 young horses with the bay in the shafts, he went on, turning to Dólokhov. Will you believe it, Fyodor Ivanitch? Those animals flew 40 miles. I couldn't hold them in. My hands grew numb in the sharp frost, so that I threw down the reins. Catch yourself, hold yourself, Your Excellency, says I, and I just tumbled on the bottom of the sleigh and sprawled there. It wasn't a case of urging them on. There was no holding them in till we reached the place. The devils took us there in 3 hours. Only the near one died of it. All right, so that concludes my reading of chapter 157. Hope you liked it. I'll now proceed to my reflection on the same. A Year of War and Peace, day 157. Dance my dunce. The first rule of the Dunning-Kruger Club is you don't know you're a member of the Dunning-Kruger Club. Anatoly Kuragin is not only a member of the Dunning-Kruger Club, he's also the president. As president, he is in possession of the veto power, and, with the partiality dull-witted people have for any conclusion they have reached by their own reasoning, Tolstoy explains, Anatoly exercises his veto power today when Dólokhov attempts to dissuade him from carrying out his nefarious plan. Anatoly's plan is, under cover of darkness, to steal Natasha Rostova from the back porch of Maria Dmitrievna's home and take her to a small town some 40 miles away, where a defrocked priest will perform the marriage ceremony over the 2 ignoble fools. After that, they'll take their passports and a little bit of money and go somewhere. What, it must be asked, could possibly go wrong? Dólokhov, a man of reason, if not morals, recognizes the flaw in this plan. What happens when it is revealed that Anatoly is already married? Where will the couple live? What will they live on when the money runs out? Anatoly has no reasonable responses to these reasonable questions. He has only the guidance of his racing heart, running him toward ruin. One of the most controversial questions we've discussed here at A Year of War and Peace is whether humans are rational creatures, or whether we are ruled by our passions. It's a tough call. So often it seems that passion guides human action, while reason only serves to provide post hoc justification for whatever passion dictates. Our history is littered with the fooleries of passion. The Odyssey, to take one ancient example, is basically the story of how folly and recklessness prevent, for an extended period, a man from achieving his goal. The passion parade continues to run unto this day. Just look at the front page of any newspaper. Just look at Anatoly Kuragin. Reason, on the other hand, is real. If it wasn't, we wouldn't have calculus, the scientific revolution, or the hydrogen bomb. But if reason is to win the battle for control of the human mind, it must be cultivated and nurtured. It must be practiced daily, checking every thought before action is taken. That is to say, in the words of Mary Bennett, every impulse of feeling should be guided by reason. Daily meditation. Reason herself, who holds the reins, is only strong while she remains apart from the passions. If she mixes and befouls herself with them, she becomes no longer able to restrain those whom she might have once cleared out of her path. For the mind, when once excited and shaken up, goes whither the passions drive it. Seneca, on Anger. All right, that concludes my reading of and reflection on chapter 157. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for joining me today. Remember that if you'd like to support me, you can do so either by purchasing the ebook, becoming a patron at patreon.com, or making a one-time donation to PayPal. The links to all that are down below in the show notes. Tomorrow we're going to be reading and reflecting on chapter 158. I hope you'll join me. Until then, take care of yourselves and others.